ranking all 30 starting first basemen from 30 to 1 using statistics. All of these will be backed up with some sort of statistical evidence, as that's what I'm all about. Also, don't forget to subscribe, as 92% of you watching this are not already, so I would greatly appreciate it. With that being said, let's get into it. Leading us off at number 31 is Jonah Bride for the Miami Marlins. Obviously, the first base position is going to be heavily reliant on offense to produce value, and Jonah Bride did show that a little last year. He had a WRC plus of 115, but it was a small sample and the underlying numbers just don't look as great. He doesn't hit the ball hard, and he overperformed his expected WOBA by 54 points, as you can see at the bottom. This means he was probably getting lucky, as expected WOBA takes into account exit velocity and launch angle to see what was expected to happen. This kind of production is not likely to sustain for a full season in 2025. Number 30 is Andrew Vaughn for the White Sox. Vaughn is probably just going to be a league average hitter at this point, and that's just not going to cut it at the first base position. Last year, he had a WRC plus of 97, which means he was 3% worse than the league average hitter. He was the number 3 overall pick in the 2019 draft, and we've been waiting for the breakout, but it just doesn't look like it's going to happen. At number 29 is Jose Miranda for the Minnesota Twins. He's never really been able to solidify a role at the major league level. Last year, he bounced around from third base to DH to first base, but this year, he might be able to win the everyday first base role. He was an above average hitter last season, improving on a much worse 40-game sample from 2023. The expected numbers aren't the greatest with Miranda, as he had the third worst expected WOBA out of the 31 players on this list. That basically means he's not hitting the ball hard or not elevating the ball well. I'm just not sure he'll be able to produce enough offense to keep up with some of the other first basemen on this list. At number 28 is Rhys Hoskins for the Milwaukee Brewers. Coming off the ACL tear, he had the worst season of his career. He was exactly league average at the plate with a WRC plus of 100, and he was worth just 0.1 F-WAR in 2024. This doesn't give me too much optimism heading into 2025. There is a chance he gets back to his old ways of a 120s or 130s WRC plus, but the numbers just don't really support that. At number 27 is Nolan Schanuel for the Los Angeles Angels. I was a lot higher on Schanuel last year, hoping that he could be an on-base machine, but he was only able to record a .343 on-base percentage in 2024. Now, that's not a bad number, but when your slugging percentage is only .362, then it's not ideal. Schanuel just doesn't hit the ball hard enough to make an impact on offense unless he's walking a ton and getting his singles to fall in the outfield. He's only going to be 23 years old next year, so it's not like I'm losing all hope, but he needs to find some way to make an impact at the plate. At number 26 is Colt Keith for the Detroit Tigers. In one of the more confusing moves of the offseason, the Tigers signed Gleyber Torres to play second and move Keith over to first. I'm not really sure I see the vision, as Keith was an above-average defensive second baseman last year with a fielding run value of +1. Torres, on the other hand, is well below average at the position. Anyway, I think Keith has solid potential on the offensive side. He put up a 200 WRC plus in the minors in 2023, so obviously there's something there. I just don't know how valuable he will be at first, considering all of his value is now dependent on his offense. At number 25 is Paul Goldschmidt of the New York Yankees. Goldie is now 37 years old and coming off the worst season of his career. It's not a secret that he's on the wrong side of the aging curve. Although he wasn't completely awful last year with a WAR just above 1, it's most likely only going to get worse. At number 24 is Jake Burger of the Texas Rangers. Burger's an interesting player, as his underlying numbers have always been great. Last year, he had a barrel rate in the 84th percentile, hard hit rate in the 81st, and a bat speed in the top 15%. He strikes out a lot though, and he does not walk at all, with a walk rate of just 5.4%. There's always a chance that he's able to tap into that power potential, but I'm going pretty conservative on him here in 2025. At number 23 is Spencer Steer for the Cincinnati Reds. Steer will move to first after the Reds signed Austin Hayes to be their everyday left fielder, and that's good news for Steer. Last year he was not great, as he posted a WRC plus of 96 in 158 games. He walks quite a bit at 11%, and if he can get the rest of the numbers closer to what he put up in 2023, I think he'll be somewhat valuable at first base, but coming off of the below average offensive year, I can't really put him any higher than this. Number 22 is Cleveland Guardians starting first baseman Carlos Santana. Definitely one of the hardest players to rank on this list. Offensively, his ceiling is relatively low, and he's probably only going to get worse considering he's 38 years old. But all of a sudden last year, he was an elite defender at first base, 11 fielding run value is very good, and even though defense at first base doesn't matter that much, there is some value if you're that good. If that defense drops back to what it was in 2023 or 2022, there's no way he's putting up 3 F4 again, and will probably be somewhere in between 1 or 2. At 21 is Luis Arraez for the San Diego Padres. Moving him to full-time at first base will be great for his WAR numbers because he's a disaster on defense. Last year, he recorded a -9 fielding run value, which at second base will not do good things to your overall value. He's a great contact hitter, we all know that, but even though he has an average above .310 every year, his on-base percentage was only .346 last year, which is the number that really matters. The lack of power and true on-base prowess limits his ceiling offensively. In 2023, he was able to post a .862 OPS, but that was also a year where he had an average of .354, which was well above his expected average, and that probably won't happen again. At number 20 is Lamont Wade Jr. for the Giants. As a lefty in Oracle Park, Wade has always been at a disadvantage. Despite having a .354 expected WOBA last season, he only had a .337 actual WOBA. He hit 8 home runs last season, but if he played for the Reds in Great American Ballpark, he would have doubled that and hit 16. The underlying numbers for Wade have always been great, but I don't think it's ever going to come to fruition as he's 31 years old this year, and we're running out of time for a true Lamont Wade breakout, sadly. At number 19 is Tyler Soderstrom for the Athletics. He was an above-average hitter last year with a 114 WRC+, and his advanced metrics are even better. A crazy high barrel rate, exit velocity, and expected slugging percentage gives me a lot of hope for the future of Soderstrom. As a first-round pick in 2020 and a top prospect, we all know he has the ceiling. This is a little bit more of a projection as we haven't seen anything but a small sample size, but I really like the numbers for Soderstrom heading into 2025. At number 18 is Michael Busch for the Chicago Cubs. Busch is a solid offensive player and can hit both lefties and righties well. He walks a lot with a walk rate of 11.1%, but he does strike out a lot and the underlying numbers don't favor him as much. I think he can get over that though if he keeps pulling fly balls like he did in 2024. I don't know if there's much room for improvement here given the numbers he put up, so I put him here at 18. Number 17 is the Seattle Mariners first baseman Luke Raley. He's definitely a platoon guy, but a really good platoon guy. Last year, he had a WRC plus of only 70 against lefties, but against righties, it was 142. It looks like the Mariners will start him at first against righties and Donovan Solano against lefties. He does strike out a lot though and doesn't walk, so it puts a lot of pressure on himself when he does make contact. It better be good contact. He had a WRC plus of 129 the past 2 seasons, so he's building up a bit of a track record as an offensive threat, but he will only be in the lineup when a righty's on the mound. Number 16 is Ryan Mountcastle of the Baltimore Orioles. It's been tough for Mountcastle the past 3 seasons having to play in Camden Yards with a barren wasteland out in left field, but the wall is going to be moved in a little bit in 2025. He has 90th percentile bat speed, which gives me hope that he can continue to tap into that power as he gets into his late 20s. He can hit the ball hard, but his biggest problem is elevating the baseball. He has a below-average fly ball rate and a below-average pull rate, which is not a good combination for a hard-swinging first baseman. He will still be a productive hitter, though, so I have him at 16. Number 15 is the newly acquired first baseman for the Pittsburgh Pirates, Spencer Horwitz. Horwitz gets on base at a high clip. Last year, he had an on-base percentage of .357 thanks to his high walk rate and contact rate. The power is a little questionable with a 29th percentile exit velocity, but in PNC Park as a lefty, power is not really required to get the ball over the wall. His expected numbers were great last season, and he's a solid defender to go along with it. He's another platoon guy though, and someone will be playing versus lefties instead of him. Right now it looks like it's going to be Billy Cook, not the best other half, but Horwitz is good. Number 14 is Michael Toglia for the Colorado Rockies. In his first season with significant playing time, Toglia showed a lot of things that I like. B-War said he was a lot more valuable than F-War. This is due to the fact that B-War uses defensive runs saved for the defensive component and F-War uses ultimate zone rating. DRS said that Toglia was an elite defender while UZR said otherwise. We will likely need a larger sample to see which one is true. On offense though, Toglia could be in for a breakout year in 2025. He had a 98th percentile barrel rate, which is amongst the elite hitters in the league. Bobby Witt Jr., Vlad Guerrero Jr., Marcelo Zuna. Yes, he was that good. He hits a ton of fly balls, 36% last year, which is 12% higher than league average. In Coors Field, this is a recipe for success. His expected 2024 WOBA ranks 4th out of all 31 players on this list, even better than Bryce Harper. He also had a 3-homer game last year for what it's worth. I'm pretty high on Michael Toglia going to 2025, even though this is more of a prediction. Number 13 is Mark Vientos for the New York Mets. With Alonso most likely gone, Vientos will probably slide into first, as that's where he best fits this team long term. Vientos broke out offensively last season with a WRC plus of 133, which is great, but the underlying numbers weren't as good. He overperformed his expected WOBA by quite a bit, and there isn't much to say that he can continue that. He doesn't pull the ball in the air a ton, which is a way to overperform consistently. No doubt he's still a young, exciting player, just maybe temper the expectations a bit as we move into 2025. Number 12 is Josh Naylor for the Arizona Diamondbacks. The Guardians trade him away as he's coming up on free agency, and I put him above Vientos mainly for the track record that he has. We know what we're getting with Naylor, an above-average power hitter, and he will play good defense at first. He doesn't strike out a lot, only 16%, and has a 9% walk rate. Overall, just really solid coming from the first base position. Number 11 is Nathaniel Lowe for the Washington Nationals. Lowe has been a great hitter now for 4 straight years, and there's no sign of him slowing down anytime soon. He has one of the highest walk rates in the league at 12.6%, meaning he gets on base a lot and he doesn't even need to hit for power to be productive at the plate. If he's able to hit a lot of balls over the wall like he did in 2022, then that's just a bonus for Lowe in 2025. Coming in at number 10 is Triston Casas from the Boston Red Sox. We saw Casas play a full year in 2023 and it was great with a 130 WRC+. Last year, he obviously got injured early in the year and didn't perform up to the same standard when he came back with only a 112 WRC+. I'm not going to put too much weight into these numbers as it was a small sample and he was coming off an injury, so I think 10 is a good spot for him. At number 9 is Vinny Pasquantino for the Kansas City Royals. I might be a little higher on him than most people, but I do think he has a lot of numbers that are interesting going into 2025. First, he makes a ton of contact. His strikeout rate and whiff rate are both in the 96th percentile. He also hits the ball hard with a 78th percentile exit velo and 80th percentile hard hit rate. This power has yet to translate to actual home runs and a lot of extra base hits, but all signs are pointing to him breaking out anytime soon. He's also above average on defense, which is just a little bonus at the first base position. For me, he's in the top 10 going into 2025. Number 8 is a free agent as of this recording, Pete Alonso. A lot of people thought he was going to get a long-term contract near $200 million this offseason, but front offices aren't going to be paying that price tag for someone that was a 2-win player the past 2 seasons. He hits home runs, he did well in the home run derby a couple times, but other than that, you're not really getting much from Alonso. He's obviously a good power hitter, but not a true elite first baseman. He's still a good player at number 8. Number 7 is Christian Walker for the Houston Astros. By far the best defensive first baseman in the league with a fielding run value of 19 in the past 2 seasons. Yes, defense is not the main focus here, but when you're as good as Christian Walker is, you have to take it into account. He's also been an above-average hitter for a while, and last year he put up a WRC plus of 119 and a walk rate of 10%. I really like this addition to the Astros lineup coming off the disastrous Jose Abreu and John Singleton conglomerate they had from last season. Coming in at number 6 is Yandy Diaz representing the Tampa Bay Rays. In a down year last year, he still put up a WRC plus of 120. He's still making a ton of contact with a whiff rate in the 97th percentile. He's still hitting the ball hard, but his kryptonite over his career has always been the ground ball. You can hit the ball hard and hit the ball often, but if you hit it straight into the ground, it doesn't really matter. When he does elevate the ball though, he's one of the best hitters in the league, which we saw in 2022 and 2023. At number 5 is Wilson Contreras for the St. Louis Cardinals. 3 straight seasons of an OPS over 800 for Contreras is probably all I need to say to justify his position up here. His defense at catcher was never great, so moving off of the position in favor of Ivan Herrera is not only good for the Cardinals, but also for Contreras' value as a whole. He had the 3rd highest WRC plus last season and 3rd highest expected WOBA out of these 31 players last year. There isn't much else he has to prove to show that he'll be a top 5 first baseman for me in 2025. At number 4 is Matt Olson for the Atlanta Braves. I think Olson's just allergic to having 2 great seasons in a row. Starting in 2019, his WRC plus for each year was 135, 104, 147, 121, 161, and 117 in 2024. Now those down years aren't really that bad, but obviously not as good as he's shown in the others. We saw a slight dip in the advanced metrics last year, but nothing too concerning. His barrel rate was down a little, same with the exit velocities and walk rate. If we take into account what he did in 2023 though, with a 99th percentile hard hit rate and 54 home runs, it's hard to put him any lower than this. Number 3 is Freddie Freeman for the Los Angeles Dodgers. Freeman's been the model of consistency throughout his career. He hasn't had a season under 4 F-WAR since 2015. That was 10 years ago. His ceiling may not be crazy high at this point in his career, but you know what he's going to give you. He consistently hits line drives and fly balls better than any player in the league. His sweet spot percentage is in the 100th percentile, which measures how good a player's launch angles are. His strikeout rate was only 15% and his walk rate was great at over 12%. Number 2 is Bryce Harper of the Philadelphia Phillies. It's Bryce Harper. There isn't really much I have to say to explain why he's up here, but I will anyway. The last time his WRC plus was below 138 was in 2019. 3 out of the past 5 years, he has an on-base percentage over 400, and he also hits the ball hard. Since moving to first base, he's had no problem with adjusting defensively, as he put up 5 fielding run value last season, tied for the 3rd highest out of these 31 first basemen in the rankings. He won the MVP in 2021, and I think those days might be behind him given the talent in the National League now, but there's no doubting that he's still one of the best hitters in the league. Number 1 is, of course, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. for the Toronto Blue Jays. I still remember when he got revealed as the MLB The Show 24 cover athlete, there were a lot of people saying he isn't deserving of it. But I think it's pretty clear that those people were wrong. 165 WRC plus last year, the best mark of all first basemen. The expected WOBA made its way over 400, the first time we've seen Vladdy do that since 2021. The underlying numbers were always there with him, even in his down years in 2022 and 2023. This is a great example of why looking at production stats isn't always the best way to evaluate a player's future outcomes in the majors. He led all first basemen in F-WAR last season, and I think he's the most likely candidate to do that in 2025, making him my number 1 first baseman. That does it for the ranking. Let me know what you would change, who needs to be higher, who needs to be lower. Make sure to subscribe if you enjoyed the analysis, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.